Hey everybody, how you doing? Happy Thursday. Alrighty. Well, I hope your week's going well. I'm a little still under the weather. A real bad sinus, cold, congestion, migraine stuff yesterday. So I'm all hopped up on cold meds. So tonight should be fun. Hey, Mark. Hey, Sean. Welcome on in. All right. So we didn't quite get to objects last week. Actually, did we do arrays? I don't know if we did any of arrays, did we? Oh, thanks so much, Mark. Yeah, it's definitely getting better. I can see and look at my laptop without wanting to throw up. So that's progress, right? Sean, I might have to try that later. That's some solid advice there, my friend. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about arrays, functions, and objects. Secure websites, basic authentication. Again, the email bit's super easy, but I don't want to give any credentials out here over Twitch, so you're welcome to try it yourself. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we got through debugging and forms. Am I off a week? Did we miss a whole week? That's right. No, we couldn't get to debugging or the rest of MVC because my XAMPP server died. That's right. It's been a weird summer, folks. All right. Cool. So let's fire that up here. And we should be able to talk a little bit about Tomcat tonight. Just how to get it started here. Shouldn't be too bad. All right, and then we have Project 3 coming up due as well. I had a couple questions that were pretty good here in terms of how to manage the bills. We'll take a look at some of that. I'll give you a couple ideas here that might be useful for doing that. So I think, the more proper way is to log a transaction every time you charge them for something. But again, that's probably a little bit beyond what we need to do just for practicing some of this. So the idea was we'll just have a table for the bill, and then I'll have their outstanding balance. Something like that. And then we can go and update the balance based on whether or not they're making a payment or they're registering for a class. So we need to look at some database queries, look at how we can check to see if they have an existing row or not, and then some options around that. All right, let's see if this will open up here. Come on. Awesome. So one option here in our student model, when we go to add a student, we can also go add an empty bill, right? Enter an entry in the bill table for them. Again, this is not super ideal, but trying to manage individual bills and break payments up between them is not. That's going to be even trickier because then we'll need a payments table and we'll need the charges table and we'll have to reconcile them. And that's probably a little bit more advanced than we want to get into in terms of the database programming side of things, especially not having the database class as a prereq for this. So the easy way is just add the new bill table, and then you can either add it here or we can go and look for one when we go do that. Yes, thank you. Oh, wow. Can free up 4 meg of disk space. Is that a comma? Is that 4 gig? Probably 4 meg. We'll try that later. All right, so we're going to expand this model, add a new table, add the bills, and then we need a way to see, hey, is there one already for this? Right? Or other things we can do, which is kind of fun. If we want to play with our student controller here, maybe we have a way to, instead of listing all the students, maybe we have a single student view, and then we can see if they have any enrollments or not. Right, that might be kind of fun. And then this will help set us up as we go along here. So we'll take a look at that and see how we can change our student view here. So in the student view, right, this is a bunch of add, update, right, our CRUD operations here. I did not rename that one. That should be delete student. That's what I get for my copy pastes, right? Okay, now I think we got all the courses out of there. So if we wanted to be able to filter on a particular student and find all of their sections, right, we need to add some ability to do that filtering. So we were doing the filtering before in our courses, right? We were able to filter by department. Right, so let's just do another little a filter here. And then we'll come back to our student view. Let's add a little filter. Okay, and this will go to the students.php page. And we want to filter by student, and this will be probably the name, right? I don't know if filter is even the right. Maybe find student by name. Sure. I like that. So we can find a student by name. Right, so we're just going to, again, this is a get operation. So we're not posting, we're not changing any data. This is just like a read-only operation. So we'll send it by get here to the student page, and then we need to go and look to see, hey, is there a value for name here? If we're doing our, if there's no action. So we'll take a look at our student page here. See, so if there is no action, then we want to see if there is a student. Okay, so if the action was list, then we want to see, was the action, or was there a name we want to filter on, or do we want all students? Right? So then we need to get the name attribute here then. So we'll have $name is, get the name. Right, so we're either going to get all students or a single student here. So we can check if, I guess we can do that inside of here then, right? So for listing, we'll get the name. If name does not equal nothing, then I only want one. Otherwise, I want all the students. Right, and then we'll include the student view. So my student model will need a way to get a single student. And instead of listing all students, right, we could either pass that value in like we did with the courses. We could check for department and either do all of them or some of them. We could do that way. I like that. We'll ask for a name, and then we'll check if name does not equal nothing. We'll do the one way, else we'll do the other way. I guess it's the same query. Right, what do we do in course? Okay, yeah, I'll do the same statement then. That's fine. We'll leave the statement in here. So if name is not null, we'll have to query where name is like, and then we'll use the substitution name here. And again, maybe we want to take name and we want to add to it the wildcard, like we did with course. You can add the little wildcard so we can do the like instead of exact equals here. Or maybe we want an exact match. Maybe this is only matching for a single student. Or name equals name. Because if we want to be able to find all the sections, we can do that. So we'll prepare the query, and then we need to go bind the value. We're going to bind name to name. Okay, and then either way we can execute. We'll fetch all. We're only going to have one if we give it a student, right? So let's see if we can just get one to start here. And we filter our students by name. So we'll go to students. Oh dear. Student model line 3. Uh-oh. Oh, our list students function, we didn't pass anything. That's what it was. So list students needs to pass name no matter what. So it can be either. We don't need to do an if else here. Right? We just pass name into list students. And we can include the view. Okay, now let's try that again. Hopefully that clears up that error. All right, it looks a little better. So filter by name. Oh, let's add a new student then, right? So we'll add, how about John, HD, Computer Science, JP Baugh, Matt. oaklandcc.edu. We'll add him. All right, cool. Now if we can filter by name. So let's look for an Eric. All right, we'll look for a John. Okay, so we're able to filter. If we filter by nothing, right, we get everything. Well, so I'm going to show you how we can pull up additional details here, Kleenex. And so, because we don't know if there's going to be any values returned for their enrolled sections. So once we get a single student, we're going to go look to see if they have any sections they're enrolled in, and then see if we can get some more information about the course, or see if they have any enrollments, and then get more information about the sections. So we can give better info about that individual student. So if we're filtering to a single student, we can go get more info. Similar with the bill, right? When we want to go add a bill for a student, we're going to have to see, oh, do they already have a bill or not? And then we can go add one. Okay. Cool, so we got that info. Then we want to get some enrollment information. So this was list enrollment with grade. That's like where the grade matched. That's add, that's delete, that's update. So we don't have a way of really filtering at the database level. All right, so we want to add a function here then. We're going to get enrollments for student, given a student ID, right? For enrollment, where student ID equals student ID, and we'll go bind that value. Bind student ID with the student ID, and go fetch to see if we get any enrollments here. So then if we're filtering here in our student section, we can get enrollments as well for that individual student if we want. And I'll link these together here. So if it's for a single student, we can get additional information here. So our controller should be doing that. So if we have a student, then if there's an individual name we're looking for, we want to try and get additional enrollments then. So then we can say if $name does not equal nothing, then we want to get enrollments for students given. Now this is going to be the student's ID field, right? Now what we're getting back here, remember, is a list. So we need the first value out, and then we need to get the ID out of that one. So like with an array, we want the first one out, and then we want the ID of it. I think we can do ID. I think that'll work for us. So this will be enrollments, get enrollments for students. And let's try that. Let's put a breakpoint in here. We'll see if we can do this in debug mode. Come on. Where's my breakpoints? Come on. Toggle my line breakpoint. Did it add it? Why is it not behaving? Oh goodness. It's not adding the breakpoint. Why is it so upset? Okay, it is in debug mode. That's fine. Let's see if we can add it here then. We want to do that in our student controller in here. There we go. Okay, now I can add the breakpoint. Cool. So we'll continue. Students. Now we should be able to watch. See, there's no action, so our action is going to be list students. Name is nothing, right? There is no name value for our name variable. So we don't do anything there. But now students, right, is an array with two values there. The first value has the ID property. So with an array, right, you're getting multiple values just like in Java, with the 0th index being first, and then on and on and on and on as we go. So that's looking good so far. We get all of our students. We filter by a name. And we can step on through. We can see we should now get our name property out. There we go. So we get name now is Eric. Right, we're able to get that input. And we're going to step in and get the enrollments for that student. So we're going to get enrollments for student, given the students list, index 0, ID field, ID property. Oh, did it break? It broke. Oh, it doesn't know what that function is. Do we not include it? Nope, we need to include the enrollment model. That's right. Include the enrollment model. And the enrollment model has the function that we need. Let's give that a shot. We filter by students. Okay, we got, oh, we haven't done anything yet with the enrollments yet, though. Okay, so now we'll have the enrollments data. Now we need to go add that to our student view. Okay, we have this enrollment view, but we don't really want everything here, right? All we really need is this little table. Right, and we want to do that if we have an enrollment. Right, so we could either pull this portion out as its own view, or for now we can just copy paste and feel a little bit bad about ourselves. So we want to see and say if enrollments does not equal nothing, then we want to go do this thing. Right, I can do for each, and the for each, and then end that one. Should end that tag. That is not picking it up. Bummer. And for each, my if. Let's see what that does. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna work quite right. Yeah, unclosed on line 27. Student view. Okay, okay, now it's closing it. So end our first line, do the for each thing, close the next one. Let's see if that'll work for us now. Uh-oh, enrollments. Where'd that go? Let's take a look at our controller. How about an else then? All right, just so it has a value then. It's either going to have a value or not. All right, then we can filter. And look at that, we get an enrollments table. All right, it's still not quite as pretty, right? You need to go take rest from our enrollment view here. We have the table border. Okay, and then we got to end the table then too as well. Slash table. There we go. There's ending the table. All right, let's see if that's any prettier now. There. Now we can see course ID, student ID, grade, but now we want better information, right? It'd be nice to get more than just the student ID. Well, we don't even need student ID, right? Because it's for this individual student. And what if we could get course information? And that's actually section, right? That's like not course, that should be section. Section ID. There we go. That should be the section ID. There. We can kind of embed this in here if we got any data. So if we didn't have any data, right? So if we go and filter for John, oh, we're getting an empty, so he had no enrollments here. Because we got something back. But what we got back was not a nothing, right, in our controller. Name was not none, so we tried to get enrollments, and it's not an empty string. Right, so we put that in debug mode. We can look and see we're getting back an empty result. But we're getting back a result even if it's empty. Let's continue. Let's go to our student controller. We'll take a peek here. Let's put a breakpoint there, and then we'll filter students. We'll continue that. All right, filter on John as the student, and now we can see here, when we step, what enrollments is, then is an empty array. So it's not a nothing that we're looking for in that view. We said, hey, if it's nothing, do this thing. Right, you see the difference? So it's just an array with nothing in it, in this case. So we can check, maybe checking for size is better. Enrollments dot. Let's just Google that. Get the size of array. It's probably in the chapter, but I'm forgetting at the moment. Count. Size of. All right, so size of or count. Sure. If size of does not equal 0. Let's give that a shot. Oh, goodness. Oh, it's not enough. Yep. Our controller here was giving us this. So we need a new array, an empty array. Give it an empty array. Filter by Eric, we get 1. Filter by John, we get empty. So if you want to check to see, hey, did we get anything back? Right? We can look for it being an size of 0 array. You'll get no results. So if you're gonna try and look up the bill for a given user ID or a given student ID, right? You're gonna get back an empty array if there are no results. So like our query did here, we said, hey, give me everything where the student ID matches. If you don't get any matches, what you're getting back is an empty array. But you're still going to get an array back. It's just empty. Okay, so that's how we can check for bills. And then if there's no bill, we can go insert, right, for that bill. If there is a bill, then we want to go update it. That make a little bit of sense? The other cool thing we can do is we can start using objects. So objects are building our own classes. Right? Hopefully that term object rings some bells for you there. Just a second. There we go. So to build out a class, then, is just defined as class. So these are all functions right now. So if we wanted to, let's go to our student model, and let's build out a class student with a set of curly braces. And you have private values like ID, private, I don't know, we had a name, we had a private email address, and a private major. Right, so we had all of our attributes here. And then we can have functions for how we can get at these. So we're going to make public functions then that are member functions of the class. Right? They're instance functions. Like get ID. Returns the ID. But to get your ID, you want to use this So this is going to give you this instance's ID here. So just like in Java, use the this pointer. So it's a this and then an arrow instead of a dot. It's a little weird, but get ID. So if you want to have a set ID, public function set ID, given an ID, right? We'll take this this ID equal, oh, sorry, dollar this, goodness, dollar sign, come on fingers, this ID is equal to the ID. We can set the ID. Right, so we can write all of our get and set functions here, in addition to any other kind of functions you want. And then if you want to have a constructor, it's double underscore construct. It's a magic method, look at that. And what do we want? Well, we want an ID, we want a name, we want an email address, we want a major, right? And we'll do all the sets. So we'll do this ID equals the ID, and we can do this, oh, goodness, this ID. I'm sorry, you don't need the other dollar sign. This is the dollar sign, regular ID for the attribute here. And this name equals a name, and this email address is equal to the email address, and this major equals the major. Okay, so if you only want to be able to set it once when you construct it, and then just gets again, sure, let's go for it. I think we can add all of our getters here too. Should be pretty smart. Java style, look at that. Look at that. It writes all the gets for us. Don't you love NetBeans? NetBeans is such a great, I mean, any IDE should like have these kind of features, but it's so nice when you can use them. So you can make a student, an instance of the student class here then. We can have all of our gets. So that way, instead of having to pass all of these attributes around, we could pass an instance of student instead. It's pretty cool. So when you go to update student, then maybe our student controller could use the student class. Instead of having to pass all of it, they can make an instance of the student class, do that sort of thing. Right? Any way you want to go about it here. So again, trying to be more object-oriented works really nicely. Excuse me. Okay, so if we wanted to use a student then instead here, we could say student equals, and then we say new student, given the ID, the name, the major, and the email address. I think those are out of order, right? Didn't want them the other way around? What did we do here in our student model? I already forgot. We said name, email, major. So name, email, and then major. Right, and then we could update student given the student we just created, if we wanted. And we could change that here to be a student, and we go change it in our model. Then for update to take a instance of student. Right? Now it's student. Student ID. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to get student get ID. Yeah, because we have public methods. That's right, they're public methods. So get ID should give us for that student. And then student get name does not equal null, and student Get major does not equal nothing. Oh goodness, this is getting long here. All right, and student get email address. Okay, so we can use all the functions then for all the gets. Okay, yeah, we got to replace all those too, bummer. But that's okay. Name and name. Get major function, there we go. And get email address. Okay. We should see if that works. So see if we can update a student here. So let's update John here. HD Computer Science. JP Baugh, Oakland, bc.edu. Oh goodness, get email address. Did I spell it wrong? Might have spelled it wrong. Oh no, it did an underscore. That's okay. Get email address. Yeah, we probably should have used underscores everywhere, but that's okay. That's okay. Try it again. We'll go back, update, and there we go. It updated using the student object now. And we didn't really gain a whole lot here, but if we're consistently using objects, right, it's going to be a little more familiar for us. Rather than having to pass a bunch of properties, right? Especially, like, even having 4 different properties here was a lot. Having to pass 4 separate ones to be able to pass just a single instance of student is much nicer. And then other things you can do, like this select here, instead of just fetching all of them, we could actually turn around and loop and make a bunch of student objects for us to use, rather than this essentially a 2-dimensional array. Right, it's a bunch of rows, and each of those rows have a bunch of properties, right? So you can go full on and go object-oriented and use objects for stuff like that. And then we could even write code, right? So if we wanted to check for a student and see if they had a bill or something, we could do all of that in one of our models or in our controller. Have a student object and have additional piece of information about it here that matches what we've got in the database. So we got lots of fun objects, or lots of fun ways we can use objects. Okay, you can have static methods if you want for your classes. That's perfectly fine. Totally up to you. And again, the book kind of goes through and sets up some of those for you. So lots of things you can do with objects. They're a lot of fun. And inheritance works, that sort of thing. You can do abstract classes, all that sort of stuff, just like you could do in Java land. Interfaces too. That makes sense. So we're not going to spend too much time on classes, but they're out there, and again, so it helps you work in more of that object-oriented manner rather than here's just a bunch of functions. Right? Cool. All right, other questions about the next project as we're kind of iterating on our enrollment system here? We're going to go out and add the billing operations. And again, feel free to start with mine or start with yours, anyone you want to. Just remember the database fields are very case sensitive. So if you start with my code, then you might need a little bit of tweaking there. We're listing the bills. Right, another cool thing we can do, if you want, let me show you this too, because this might be fun, is instead of just giving you stuff from enrollment here, so if we're saying select star from enrollment where student equals the student, if we wanted to get that section information here, our query can be more interesting. Okay, so instead of star from enrollment, we want to start doing some joins here. We're going to say join section on, or inner join section on section.id equals enrollment dot section ID. So these join commands here, I think we talked about briefly in the database lecture, let us connect the two tables together using that foreign key. So the foreign key in enrollment is section ID to the section ID primary key. So you say, okay, join the two tables together, and I will get all of the information about them. And then we also want to interjoin course on course.id equals section.courseID. Course ID, there we go. Where the student is the student. So, and again, you can write all these sorts of queries in the PHP MyAdmin to kind of practice them out. I'm somewhat familiar with some of these, so I think it'll be a little easier for me. So let's see. So in our view, then we want to have some additional information. We don't want the section ID. Then I want the course name, maybe, and that should be. I think it's just name here. Let's try that. And the student ID, sure, whatever. Maybe that was the. What was that other table called? MyAdmin. Come on. I'll close all those other tabs. All right, we're not debugging anymore, right? That should just go. There it goes. All right, so we'll take a look at our tables, make sure I get the right names for these things. Come on, college database. There we go. That was the section table. Of course, was name. Meeting day time. Right, so it's meeting day time. Section meeting day time or something like that. Sure. Let's see if we can get that to work. So if we look for Eric, we have the course name, right? Intro to Programming Java. We have the section meeting day and time pulled out of here. So what we get back in this results list here in our enrollment model, it's right here. We'll break there. We do this in debug mode. We got to continue, do that one. Students, continue again. Then I can filter on Eric. Okay. We're going to continue. Here's the breakpoint. So we're going to get enrollments. So yeah, we can continue again. Here we go. So now enrollments, then, there's only one row, but it has section ID, student ID, grade. Right? That's all of the section info, right? ID for section, section ID. I'm sorry, this is all the enrollment info first. So it goes in order of the tables that you declare. Okay, so that's all the stuff from enrollment. Then I'm getting my section info, which is the course ID, the semester, the instructor, the meeting date and time. And then I'm getting the department, the number, the name, and the credits from course. So you don't have duplicate IDs though. Right? And actually you'll see they're not in as ID, but their number value is here, the field number that comes back. So a select star is sometimes a little awkward because you're getting everything out, and the duplicates are gone here because you can't have two fields by the property ID. So we can have the numeric fields. So I can't get anything else out by ID. Like in my student view, like this ID here is the enrollment ID. That's it. That's the only ID that I'm getting out. The other ones have to be by name here in my results. Okay, so we could add in as much info as we want in here, right? We could make this table bigger, have additional information. So this is the table join here. So it gets information across all the tables where there's a match. Now, if there is no match, right? So if like John didn't have any enrollments, go back and look for John, right, it's just nothing there. He was not going to have any. Right? I mean, there weren't any enrollments anyway, so there was nothing there for us to find information about. So you can query across multiple tables this way, following those foreign key IDs. And we should get, so if I go enroll in another class here, let's look, what other courses do I have here? So let's go enroll in course 2 then. So section ID, oh, I need more sections, right? Okay. Section 3 then. So let's enroll in section 3 for student ID 1, and I'll just give myself an A. Why not? Oh, goodness. Foreign key student ID. My student ID not 1? Here's 1. Section 3. Right? Oh, student ID 1, section ID 3. I was backwards. That's right. Section 3, student 1. A. No. Oh, goodness. Preferences, student ID. Oh, boy. Oh, enrollment 3. 3. Oh, we did something wrong with our enrollment here then. What's wrong with enrollment? Sorry if you're using mine as an example here then. It's not going to work. Section ID, student ID. Student ID, student ID, section ID, section ID. Okay, so maybe it's in the enrollment controller. Oh, goodness. They're both section ID. Friends. Okay, one of these needs to be student ID. Probably that one, right? Section and then student for my add enrollment method. Section and then student and then grade. Well, friends, we had an issue there. That was not going to work very well. And nobody caught it, so nobody gets any bonus points. All right, let's go back and try that again. There we go. Now I have another enrollment. So now if I go find Eric and filter, I'm going to see both enrollments because I have more than one, right? So there's two rows in enrollment that join all the way across. I know. You know what? You guys can get some bonus points because you're the only ones talking in Twitch, keeping me company here. How about that? I'll give you like 10 bonus points each. But you know they're not actually worth anything, so they're just like moral support bonus points. Nice. All right. Hey, KB, awesome. Yeah, you can get some bonus points too. And then again, using the option lists for our drop downs here to make those things prettier. Life is a little easier when we have that. Okay. Other thoughts, questions, concerns about finishing up Project 3? Again, hoping to just kind of iteratively build on this. Project 4, we're going to completely change gears and go over to Java JSP land. So Project 3 will be the last PHP project, unless you want to use PHP for the final project. Now, when it comes to the final project, you can either use PHP or Java JSP. Either one. It is the thought that counts. That's right, Mark. That's right. Okay. Look at that. We did pretty good catching up on some of that missing content. And then talking about Project 3 as well. So functions, arrays, objects. We covered them all, right? All of last week. Okay, now we have to get to secure websites, basic authentication, email, and intro to web programming in Java, MVC, and Tomcat. We'll be in pretty good shape, I think. Okay? And then next week, we'll go over servlets in depth. So this is just the basic. This is what it is. And Tomcat, I can't talk, is the other web server here that comes packaged with XAMPP. It's going to need a little bit of config tweaking if we're using the OpenJDK, because you have to tell it where to go find Java. And we'll talk all through that tonight as well. So secure websites is a lot of fun. It's a little bit obnoxious to do locally, but it's get you this HTTPS here. That's the other port, right? So we use port 443 and 5080. 443 is for the secure communication here. So if we try and hit our localhost on 443, oops, I forgot to update it, and HTTPS. Right, HTTPS by default we don't need to change the port number here because it knows that's what the port is. And then Firefox at least is telling me, hey, it's not secure. And why are we not secure? Well, it's a local host certificate. It's just a local cert. Look at that, it's even expired. Nice. Again, it's local, so it should be perfectly fine. We're not too concerned about that. Getting actual certificates is a little bit more difficult. Lots of stuff goes into that, and we don't really have the ability to get into depth. There's a whole web server administration class you can take that I think gets into some of those details. But we can make sure everything works secure if we want. Okay. All right, so before we jump into secure websites, basic authentication, and email, and the rest of the Java stuff, why don't we take a quick break? I think here's a good stopping point. And then we can go from there. How's that sound? Let me put some music back on. I had to switch. I kept getting mutes from Spotify. I don't know if it was just their ads or the DMCA was had remixes of other stuff. So got some music from my friend from Shaping the Silence. And we can go from there. All right, so when we take 10, we'll come back. Say 7:03. We'll take 10, and we'll come back and pick it up from there. Thanks, folks. Hey, oh man, I forgot my loop button here. There we go. Is that on loop all now? Is that it? That might be it. All right. Whew. I think we're probably good with that then. Awesome. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about authentication. This is super cool, and how we can set it up so that people can actually log into your website. That's the fun stuff. Hey, Mark. Welcome on back. All right, so just a little bit about secure connections again here. This idea that we will connect and have our connection protected and encrypted here. This HTTPS. Used to be known as Secure Socket Layer, or SSL. Nowadays, we've moved over to TLS, or Transport Layer Security. So TLS is the latest and greatest, and we're on version 1.2 is the correct version for that. And you will actually check most good browsers. Any decent browser here is going to check for us here. So this certificate here is what is used to ensure that the information we send back and forth is encrypted. Now, it's actually only used for part of this setup here. So if we pull up our whiteboard, we get this fun little process that happens. Let me start up a new. Cleared this one out. All right. So here's us. Here's our little laptop here, right? There's all the little keys on it here. Right, and here's the screen. Sure. Okay, here's our laptop. We send something out to the big cloud. That's a cloud, it's fluffy, right? And somewhere in the cloud here is a web server. I don't know, we'll call that one the web server. Okay? When you go out to the web server, you get their certificate information. You get the cert info. So you send your request out, step 1. Step 2, it sends you the cert info. Okay? This is the public key that you're given. The certificate. So this is known as asymmetric encryption. So there's a public key and there is a private key. And what's really cool is, thanks to the math here, that you can use the public key to encrypt something, and it is only decryptable by someone who holds the private key. And vice versa, it works as well. So someone who has the private key can encrypt something that will be decryptable with the public key. So when you get that certificate information here, right, that comes back to us. Then we can, so this was actually encrypted with the private key. So it says, hey, this is my public key, and it sends a message that is encrypted with the private key. So public key. This is super cool. The public key can be used to decrypt what was sent with the private key. Okay? So it sends you back and says, this is my private key, and by the way, here's a message that I've encrypted that will decrypt with my public key so that you know I am in possession of this private key. I'm the correct owner here. Okay? Then we send across a message back to them. I don't want to go on top of all my words here for step 3 then. That we've encrypted with the public key. So we use the public key to encrypt a message that we send to the server that is only decryptable by someone with that private key. So I know that they own the cert, that they have control of the private key because their message was encrypted with the public key. And then I know if I encrypt something with the public key, the person who owns the cert is the only one who's going to, or someone with access to the cert is the only one who can decrypt the message. That is asymmetric here right now. So asymmetric. A-S-M-Y? Symmetric. I can never spell, I'm sorry. Symmetric. Asymmetric. And what happens here with this back and forth is that we actually establish a symmetric key that is used for the rest of the communication, back and forth. Right? 4 plus. On and on and on and on and on. And many other messages as we send. The reason is asymmetric is slow. Right? It takes lots of computational power to do this encrypting and decrypting. Not tons, but much slower than a symmetric key encryption. This one is fast. Okay, still encrypted, and we're able to negotiate what the symmetric key is used for that session as long as we're connecting back and forth over a secure connection. So we don't want to do it all with the public and private key because that's slow, but we can use the public and private key to generate the symmetric key that we're going to use for the rest of our communication. That'll be nice and fast. Okay, so you can get certificates from lots of different places. All your hosting sites will do it for you here. And then you can see that there's actually a certificate path. So the star.desiretololearn.com certificate, so anything that is anything here, .desiretololearn.com, can be signed by the certificate issued by Amazon, the Amazon Root Certificate Authority. And we trust the Amazon Root Certificate Authority to issue keys and to know that, yeah, they have properly established that this person owns this this certificate. And you can see all sorts of fun details about it here, the level and the detail. So this is an RSA 2048-bit key here. So RSA, again, that's the math behind public and private key encryption. It's actually the initials of the people who created it. RSA founders? Creators? I forget what I'm going to search for. Yeah, Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adelman. It was their work that set the stage for public and private key encryption back in 1977. Whew, wow. That's really cool. So without this sort of mathematical craziness, it'd be very difficult to have secure connections. And now, just because there's a secure connection, right, doesn't mean it's not a malicious site. Right? All the secure connection means is that you're communicating with someone who has access to the private key. That's it. That's all it means. Right? It can still be a malicious site. It just, they have access to that private key. And it's they're usually bound to given domains as well. So your cert works for a specific domain. So if you go to all the different domains here, I don't know if you want to pop up Google, why not? We'll see their certificate. Now look at their cert here. Right? Is issued by the Google Trust Services Global Sign Root Certificate Authority R2. I don't even know what that means. Right? This has its own set of details. But the star.google.com cert then, right, is the one that's used to say, yeah, we're talking to somebody who has access to the star.google.com certificate. So if someone tries to send you to a fake site here, like with a 0 in there, think, oh, we can't even get to that. I thought Google owned that one. 2 O's? Maybe 2 zeros? No? 1 O? Aha. Now it's warning us, goggle.com is no good. Its security certificate is from google.com. So we're about to get redirected here. If we continue, it says, hey, it's not actually secure, because the certificate we were given is saying, hey, we're google.com. And our browser says, no, you didn't go to google.com, you went to goggle.com. And that's why I want to continue, and it's just going to redirect us here in a second. It takes us to the right place, but we get that cert warning. Because they didn't want to have a separate certificate for goggle.com. Okay? So certs are really cool. And typically the longer the length there, so like that certificate when we looked at was a 2048-bit key. This one here, 256. That's not great. Oh, wow. Yeah, I really thought that had been longer. Okay, interesting. Check out this cert here. This one was the 1020 or 2048-bit RSA encryption. Yep. So the longer the key is, that means the math behind this uses prime numbers that are up to 2048 bits in size. And public and private key encryption, the RSA encryption, needs two prime numbers that you factor. You actually factor the prime number -1. It's some really interesting math. I think we go through it in one of our cryptography classes. You can actually do a proof where you go through all the math, and it's really fun to figure that out. But it uses really large numbers, so 2048 bits. Large of a number is 2048 bits. That's something really big. 616 and 617 digits. Woof! That is a lot of digits in a prime number. Look at that, RSA numbers. Look at that. How cool is this? This is a fun rabbit hole, folks. So, ooh, they had cash prizes if you could factor some of them. So some of the smaller numbers have already been factored. Look at that. So we're able to factor a 100-digit prime in a couple days. Long time ago. 50. Oh goodness, this is huge. So the weird thing here is that if someone is snooping your network traffic, they'll get the encrypted packets, right? Because remember, all the information we send across the internet goes over public transport lines, essentially, right? I mean, otherwise it's not really the internet; it's an intranet if you own it all. So you're going over the internet, so it's possible someone can be listening and capturing your packets, and if they want to hold on to them for long enough, not too much longer into the future, we're not really sure how many more years, they will be able to break 2048-bit keys. Right, just with advances in computing power, and especially as we get closer to quantum supremacy. So they predict quantum computers will be able to break or factor these pretty easily. I'll believe it when I see it, but that's just a fun fact. Okay, I think that was interesting enough. So secure connections. So a fun little thing you can do if you want to make sure that someone always is going to your secure site, you can have a little redirect here. So Murak has that in the book. I don't think we need to go through the whole redirect here, but it says, hey, if you're connecting over HTTP, redirect them with a header, right? Send them, instead of an include, just use a header to reload the page, given the HTTPS site instead of HTTP. That's a pretty common thing. Lots of sites have automatic redirects. We're working towards getting everything on the internet being sent over TLS. It didn't used to be a very common default, but it's much more and more common to be a default now. So basically everything should go over secure. Quantum computing where no man has gone before. All right, and then for authentication, in terms of how we can authenticate ourselves and tell the web page that we are somebody. Right. Forms-based authentication is where they type a username and password into a web form. Right, that's pretty common, right? Most of the sites do that sort of form. There's also a basic authentication where you just get like a built-in dialog box, but it's not necessarily as common. Form-based is definitely the most common authentication type. All right. So one thing you're going to see people do, which is really bad. Let's do this here. Let's go to our database here. Where's my PHP myadmin? Here it is. Let's go to student. And we're going to add a column. You know what? Let's not do that. Let's add a brand new table here. That'll make me happier. So we're going to add a new table. Nope, not a new database. Sorry, a new table here. And we'll call this login. So we'll have an ID, right? That again will just be a auto increment primary key. And then we'll have a student or a username, which will be varchar. I don't know, like 50 characters. And on this one now, we actually want to add a unique constraint here. We want to make sure that this is what, login username. Sure. We want to make sure that the username is unique, because when we try and log people in, we're going to log them in using a username and password. If two people have the same username, bad stuff, right? You could also use that as a primary key and not do this auto increment thing. But again, I'm quite fond of this, and if we're doing it on all of our other tables, we should probably just do it here to make things nice and easy and standard. That's just my opinion, because I like things that are standard and convention-based, because that makes life easy if you always know your table have an ID field. Again, not required, but just a thing I like. And then we're going to have a password field here, and we want, let's see, how big is this going to get? These get big, I forget. So we want a varchar that's like 200 or something. I'm trying to remember, see if it says how big it is here. Well, up to 255. We'll go up to 255. There we go. Okay. Okay, so that will store the password, and then we also want then the student ID as a foreign key. Then, so this login will be associated with a given student, but that way we don't have to add username and password to the student table. Again, just to that way we don't have to modify anything that we already have. I think this is maybe easier to add a new table in here. Okay, and we'll save that one, and then we'll go add that relation so that student ID references the ID in the student field. All right, we'll go to relation view, and we'll add that foreign key. So my student ID references the student table ID column. There we go. Foreign key, student ID, sure. There we go. Oh, what? I think it did it. That's super weird. I think it's there. I think it's just confused. Let's see. Let's look at that login table again. Structure. Relation view. Yeah, it's, oh no, that's the, no, it's not there. What do we do? Student ID matches the student ID field. Okay, oh, I didn't add a name. Sure. Okay. That's weird. I guess I didn't like the name. Okay, sure. Now it's happy. All right, so we've added that reference. Okay. So now what we're going to do, what you don't do here is you don't go to the login table and say, hey, here's your password. We don't want to go add some data. Right? Say, hey, username Eric, password test. Don't ever, 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 ever store passwords in, this is called clear text, in their actual text form. That's a really, really bad thing to do. Okay, super bad. What you do instead is you store the hash of a password. And a hash is another fancy cryptographic term. A hash is a one-way, you might call it encryption, but encryption typically means that you can decrypt it, where it being a one-way means it will only ever hash, and you can never get the original password back from the hash, thanks to the mathematics scrambling that it does, which is pretty cool. So that way, you're not storing their actual password, you're storing a one-way hash of it. So if they tell you what the password is and you hash it, you'll see if the hash matches to see if they knew what their password was. Now you're never storing their password in clear text because that's super, super, super bad form. Okay? So PHP has a couple ways of generating some cool passwords. Okay, it looks like it's 60 characters. I'm sorry here for their default. So what we can do then, if we want to create a login, let's go to a new view, maybe new controller. Add a login controller first. Okay, and then we're going to see, hey, what is our action? We'll do a bunch of requires. Right, we need our database model. We'll need a login model, and then check for a bunch of actions. We can go from there. A login model. And if the action is that, we will, this will be, I don't know, login prompt, maybe? We'll ask them to log in. Because we actually need to create an account here. That's fine, we can do all that. And if there's an action, then we'll include some views. Sure, we'll take a bunch of this. Why not? Probably don't need most of those. Login prompt, we don't need any parameters here. We're just going to include a view. Okay, and then probably only ever need then one other one. If the action is login, then we'll try and log them in. We'll get the name and the password. Post password. Okay, then we need to see if they have an account. Or I guess we need a create account here, don't we? Is create account. You'll need username and password. We're going to come back to login. Actually, we don't need to come back to login, do we? Or maybe we do. Sure. Okay, and then, so to create an account, we need to make a new account. So we need a login model. Let's add a new file here. Login model. And the login model has to do all this other stuff here, right? So we need a function. Let's do add here, because we're going to create one. So add or create login, maybe create account. Why not? Create login. Given a username and a password. And a student ID. Student ID. Okay. If the username is not nothing and the password is not nothing and the student ID does not equal 0, then we're good to insert. So we'll insert into login, username, password, and student ID. Okay, values, username, password, student ID. Do our binds, bind for username, bind for password, bind for student ID, with username, password, and student ID. Execute and close, so it'll create the login for them. Okay, that should match our fields there for our create login. So then in our controller, we can call create login. Create login. I guess we should call this create login as well then, right? Create login. Given the name, the password, and the student ID. So get the student ID out. And we also want to validate that as integer, right? Where's my, there we go. Filter validate. Okay, but before we give them the password here, we want the password to be hashed. I guess we can say hash, right? Hash might as well. Hash is, and then there's a built-in function in PHP called password hash. And we're going to give it the password. Now you can also tell it which algorithm you want to use, if you want to be very specific. By default, it's using the bcrypt algorithm, but it might change if we're just using the default. It should be perfectly fine for create login. Later on down the road, when we try and verify passwords, if that default algorithm changes, we're going to have some trouble. That's really a problem to solve for another time, right? We're not going to worry too much about it here. So we're going to actually pass the hash instead of the password. We'll create the login. Okay, if the login here then, action, we want to go get that information. Right, and we want to see if it matches. Okay, so what we can do then, we're going to add a function for or get login for username. That needs the username. And it's going to grab that database, and then we'll run a query. Prepare our query, we'll execute, close the cursor. So we want to select star from login, where username equals the username. Look at that. Prepare it, execute it, and then we want user is equal to statement fetch all, or really just fetch, right? Because we're doing an equal, so should only be one. So fetch will get just one row, right? It should be perfectly fine. We'll close our cursor, and then we'll return the user. Okay, so given a username, we'll go get the information out. So then my login controller, right? I've got the password. I'm going to have the hash. We're going to check in a minute here. We're going to say my user is get login for username, given the username. Oh shoot, this should be username, shouldn't it? All right, yeah, that should be username everywhere. Username, 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 username. Okay, I'm happy with that. Username. And now we're going to check. So there's a built-in function for getting a hash. There's a built-in function for checking the hash. So we're going to check we'll say valid password is password verify given the password and the user password. Should we call it hash in the database? Maybe we should call it hash in the database too. We should probably do that. I like that. Yeah, we're okay to leave the page. Let's call it, come on, reconnect. Where's my refresh? Okay, I'm going to change that. Oh, come on. Why is it not? Okay, I guess I'm going to leave it as password. That's fine. Not important. Get the password out and see if it's valid. And then we can check if valid password. We can redirect to somewhere else. Else we can, I don't know, we'll say something about invalid or redirect them and give some sort of error. Invalid username or password. And probably header back to login again. Or maybe just include the login page. Include login. But if the password's valid, then we can send them somewhere else, right? Sure, we'll say, hey, you had a good password. For now, we'll just echo it, I guess. Valid password. Okay, and then we don't want to header them back anywhere, right? Just stay here for now. We're going to do something else in a second, but we're not there yet. Okay, so I guess either way, then we're going to just include that same login. Just do that, whether or not we set an error or not. Okay, so they give us a username. We'll go get the hash out of the database, and then we'll compare it using the password verify function. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. So then we need the login view, right? So then I add a login view. Login, I guess login view. Login view, sure. All right, go back, make sure we call that login view then. Login view. Yeah, create when I go back, sure. I guess we just include too. So I'll echo created login. Sure. And we can clean this up later. We just want to start being able to create some accounts here. So our login view then will be similar to some of our other views. Include our navigation. And then we need a login box or a create box, right? Or two forms maybe, one for login, one for create. Let's grab two forms. Sure. This will be create login. Or really, it's like register, I guess, I don't know. Or just existing user login, new user registration. Sure, why not? Something like that. Okay. So what do we need here? So this will be for the login PHP. We're going to post to it. Post to the login PHP. Existing. There we go. Existing user login. Cool. So we don't need an ID. We need name, password. We'll do the create user first. So we need username. We need password. Username. Password. And if you make this type of password here, it's going to hide the text as people type. And people usually like that because they don't want the text of their password to be shown on the screen. And that's typically bad form. And then student ID. Again, sure, this is not great, but that's fine here. Student ID. This will be, what do we say our login was going to be there? For create login, sure, that'll be our action. Create login. And that's what, register? Sure. And then existing user login just needs username and password. And that was just going to be a login action. Right? I think that was the login action. Yep, if the action was login, great. Get username, get password. Username and password. All right, should we try it? And then we need a login option here, I guess, in our navigation. Login PHP. give it a shot, see if that works for us. Login, all right. New user registration. So username Eric, password. Like it's all hidden here. How pretty is that? Isn't that nice? Let's just test. Student ID 1. Let's register. Don't ever save. Uh-oh. Password hash. Oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to give it another argument. My mistake. So when we hash the password, we need to also tell it then that we want that default. So we tell it password default. There we go. Let's try that again. So Eric, password test. Don't save. Uh-oh. Couldn't include views login. Oh, that's right. It's not views login. Views login view PHP. All right, but I might have created the user. Let's go back to our database and see if there's some data here then. Look at that, Eric, and here's a password. So this is test all mangled up. Goodness, you can't even see all that, can you? Wow, that's fun. So let's see if we can get it out here. Select start from login. Go. Nope, no, okay, same view. It's just not showing me everything. So that is the hash of my password. Pretty cool, right? Should we see if we can verify it then? If we can actually get logged in? Let's see, we'll go back. So we'll go refresh the login page. Let's try Eric and test. Login, don't save. Uh-oh. Ooh, your username. Is it not username? What do we do in our login model? Your username equals username. Oh, I didn't bind username. Bind username. There we go. If we bind it, that ought to work a little bit better. Test. Hey, thanks so much for following. Glad to have you along. All right. Oh, my login page again. My goodness. Login view PHP. It's in the views, whatever. That's okay. My bad naming convention, might as well stick with it. Eric can test. Look at that, a valid password. It was valid. So now we can assume that Eric's logged in. Again, there's another step we're going to have to do here in a minute that we'll talk about. But we're able to verify, yes, I was provided a password that hashes to the same hash in my database. Is that pretty cool? So the next thing we want to do is we want to record the fact that this user's logged in. Right? And we can do all sorts of things based on whether or not someone is logged in. Maybe they have access to certain fields or certain pages might redirect, or we might only have certain forms showing there. Like if you think to your college enrollment database, you can go search for sections all you want without being enrolled. But you can't go through the enrollment process if you're not logged in. Right? Anybody can go take a peek and see the catalog, right? Online services. Right? Anyone can go to the students menu, whether or not they're logged in or not, and search for sections. We don't have fall out there yet. We're getting there. It should be, was that next week? I wanted to say they put out something like that. I think it said somewhere, didn't it? No, nothing yet. Aha. Begins July 12th, but they're going to have it sooner, I thought. Okay, I don't know. They're going to post the fall schedule sooner than that. But again, you can go and you can look at all of it without registering or without logging in, right? But once you're logged in, then you have access to more things. So we can restrict access based on whether or not they're logged in. Okay, now you might be concerned that this form here, my login view, is sending the password in post data unencrypted, and that is correct. It is not getting hashed on the client side. So if I open up my DevTools here, and I take a look at my network options here, and we go Eric and test, and I go to login, you'll see that it was in the request. clear text password here. Now, you'd be concerned about that if we were on a unsecure connection, which we are. We're not in a secure connection, and we're not using the HTTPS page. So don't log into sites that aren't secure. Again, it should be a site that you trust. So ideally, this sort of thing would include one of those redirects, be like, oh, hey, go use the secure page if you go to log in. Right? So we'll add a note here. We should do that. Again, I'm not going to feel too bad about it. But, don't, sure, whatever. Didn't check for HTTPS connection first. You'll see it in the book yourself. Okay? Again, it's not really worth the time to go through that and demo it. It's just a quick little page that you can use for redirecting. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to feel bad about it, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, let's go see if we can create another login here. Let's go see students. We have student ID 2. So let's make a login here for John. Password test again. Student ID 2. Register. And we created a login. Awesome. So then John and test should work. We get a valid password. Look at that. Seems like it's working so far. But again, we haven't saved the fact that they're logged in yet. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to establish that session. Hey, thanks so much for following along. So we need to have a session that's established that we're going to track and maintain and have data in our session about our connection. So on the login controller, we need to start up our session. Oh, that's the wrong one here, sorry. So we want to start the session. So we call session start. This does all the things behind the scenes to manage that session, that connection that the client has to our web server. Okay, then once we have a session, we can set values on that session. You can say, hey, this session, we're going to give them an attribute that's tracked with the session. So if they log in, then what we can do, so if they were to if their password's valid here, we can take our session, so it's a $session variable here, and you can just go add anything you want here. Right? It's essentially a dictionary. We'll say is logged in is true. Okay, so they are logged in. We'll set that session value, and we can go look for that session value other places then. So in our login view, we can look for that session, and if they're logged in, we don't need to give them either prompt. Right, we can check, we still do the navigation. So below that, we'll say, I don't know, PHP if session is logged in equals true. All right, actually, so if this one is not true, question mark, there we go. If it's not true, doesn't like, parentheses, my goodness, parentheses, thank you. If it's not true, if they're not logged in, we want to do all this stuff here, then otherwise, well, look at that. It even adds a closing brace for me here. We'll just say, I don't know, H2. We're already logged in. Or here, how about, no, that's fine for now. We'll include something else in a minute. We can add some more stuff to our navigation bar in a minute. We'll see if they're logged in or not. So we want to make sure then on our login page, okay, if they're logged in, we'll set that session value. Okay, let's see how that we can get that to work for us. We'll take a look at login page. Uh-oh. Doesn't like true? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not $true. Not $true. Login view. It says regular true. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is checking a particular value. We just don't even need that. We just want to see if it's even set. So we're going to check if is set in the session. Session is logged in. So if that's set, great. So we really want if it's not set. So if there is no value for is logged in, we know they're not logged in. Okay, try that again. There we go. Now we can log in, Eric and test. Never save. And now we get the we're already logged in message. So we go home, enrollments, we go back to login. We still have the you're already logged in because it's associated with our session. So if I grab this and I go to a private window here that does not have that session data, and I go back to login, it asks me to log in because this does not have the same session, right? It's a different browser session. So this one's going to remember here, like as we navigate around the page, we're already logged in. We close it out and run it again. Go back to login, we're still logged in. So it's remembering the session here, which is pretty cool. So it remembers sessions for, I forget exactly how long, and it might be different browser by browser. Oh, let's Google that. How long a PHP session last? Firefox. Aha! You can set a session lifetime. Look at that. Session can still exist after 24 hours if it's set to that. So it looks like about a day it'll last for. That's pretty fancy. I like that. Cool. So we can do different things based on whether or not they're logged in, right? If we've set this session value. Okay, so some of those cool includes, you can check, hey, are they logged in? And we can include this and we can redirect them to the login page if they're not, if we don't want them to have access to certain pages. So if they shouldn't be able to go view a particular page, we can check, hey, if they're not logged in, let's redirect back to a page, or we'll header them back to the login page, right? That's not, usually that's pretty user-friendly, but sometimes they get confused, like, why can't I go here? So lots of different options for how you want to handle that, but it's nice to just redirect them. Usually back to the login page is pretty simple. All right. Cool. I think we're good so far with that. How you folks feeling? Cool. All right, awesome. And then for sending email, again, it's great. Are you Tony the Tiger, the gaming senpai? For sending email, there's a PHP mailer code you can get. So it's a little directory you can get, a little library. It's nice and easy to use. Frosted Flakes undefeated. Again, I don't want to have to go through and actually put any username and passwords into any of this, so I'll trust you can look at that chapter if you need to send emails. A lot of times when you create accounts, we want to verify that they have access to the email address they've registered with. So it's not just username and password. Usually it's like email address that we'll use and password, and then you can have that other step where you send them an email and they have to verify it, and it adds all this sort of complexity to making sure that the user is who they say they are, at least they have access to that email address. If we ever want to do any sort of password self-service resets, there's all sorts of cool things you can do there. sending them links and generating links and storing links and having expirations and lots of fun things there. That again, that's beyond the scope of what we're going to do. We just want a simple, let's log in here. That's all well and good stuff, but it's nothing we need to reinvent the wheel with. Okay. So sending emails and everything there is fine. You can register, and the book has examples that you can go through for that, which is pretty cool. And that essentially takes us through the book, which is pretty cool. The last little bit, we'll come back to this later, dealing with files, uploads, and images, where you can add images and then we can serve images on a page. We'll get to that when we talk about the final project. That's chapter 23. And then his chapter 24 in the Murak book just kind of puts everything together to build out the e-commerce website. That's all the things we've talked about. So aside from dealing with images and file uploads, we're essentially done with the PHP portion of the course. That's pretty cool. All right, we've gone through almost all the chapters. Again, we skip a couple of them here. You can always go back if you're curious. But a lot of that's more about database design, the stuff we skipped, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We've covered some of the basics of it here. Again, it's kind of out of scope in terms of what you've done before working with databases and beyond, but it's definitely a great reference. I'll take you through all the examples. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about Java. All right, do you folks want to take a quick break before we switch over to the Java side of the class, or you want to just power through? It's probably not too much longer. The basic intro here, there's not too much to it. We could probably get through it and knock it out in 15 minutes or so if you want to power through. But I know I've been talking for close to an hour now, so I want to give you a chance for a break if you need it. Power through? All right, you got it, folks. We can do that. All right. So, we're going to be done with Apache. Hydration, thank you so much for the reminder here. Oh my goodness, I'm out. I have so many empties. Here we go. Got a lime. It's fantastic stuff. Cans are too small though, but that's okay. I just have to pace myself. All right, so moving into Java land, we're going to switch off of our Apache server and going to switch over to the Tomcat server. So Tomcat is what we're going to use for our Java servlets and JSP. So we need to set it up first. So we go to configure. Now, it's got a lot of things happening here. Again, most of the work is done for us thanks to NetBeans. We don't need to mess around with too much of this stuff, but we come to our Tomcat folder, and there's a Catalina start.bat, and actually I think an XAMPP, there's another one we need, yeah, Catalina start.bat. So there's two of these we need to edit. The Catalina start here is what runs when we hit start. So right off the bat, if we hit start, it's probably going to fail because it doesn't know where my JDK is installed. Excuse me. Come on. I didn't get any errors? Nothing? Really? Nothing. Okay, it's probably in the logs here then. Nothing in the log. Okay, it just totally failed. So depending on how you installed Java before, if you had Dr. Ball or myself, or anybody who models after us, we use the OpenJDK. I don't have the official version installed. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. Make sure you have the JDK or JRE installed here. Oh, now it says there should be something in the logs. You have anything in the logs? No, of course not. That's fine. So this Catalina start, if you edit this file here, it's this big, ugly nonsense here. This is a batch file. This is old and ugly. Oh my goodness. This is the error we were getting, right? Cannot find. Make sure you have the JDK installed. Adopt OpenJDK, can't find that. So it's doing all these registry queries, and we don't have anything in the registry. If all you did was download the OpenJDK and unzip it in see OpenDev JDK. So if you don't have a JDK installed, a Java Development Kit installed, we'll need to go get one. I think I have it linked out here in the syllabus for you folks. The OpenJDK. This is the one I prefer because I'm just upset that Oracle wants to license Java when it's been an open source product for so long. So it's an extra hoop to jump through to not use the one from Oracle, which we could technically use for an academic setting without paying any licensing fees, but I'd want to use one that you don't. Okay, so you go download that, and it's just a quick little zip file that you'll unzip to a location. I like this OpenDev folder. That's what we have on the college virtual machines, so I like that pattern. So it's in the OpenDev folder. So I need to go and edit this batch file to tell it, don't bother looking for any of these registry entries here. We don't need any of that nonsense. We just need to tell it where the JDK is. So there is no Java home, so we need to set Java home. So we don't have a Java home defined. There is no Java home. So we want to set our Java home location. So for me, and should work here, right? Yeah, this JRE, this is what we got, right? That error in there somewhere. I think we need it right in here. I'm going to set Java home equal to, and I'm going to give it this path. Here. That ought to make it work. So it's wherever your JDK is, whatever version it is, we just set our Java home value to that, and it should work. We're going to give that a try. See if it'll start for us now. We're telling it, hey, here's where your Java version is. Yeah, you can also have the Windows environment set, environment variable. I don't like to mess with those if I can help it. So totally up to you, Sticks. Yeah, if you already have it set up, so depending on which Java you installed, you might already have it. If you didn't do any of the official Java 1.8 installs and run the installer, if all you did was download the OpenJDK and unzip it, you're not going to have anything in the registry. So if it works for you, great. You don't have to mess with any of this. If it doesn't work for you, then we have to go mess with some of this stuff here. Oh, goodness. Not defined. JDK. Maybe I need to do that up above. Searching. Yeah, it should just go for us, right? I wonder if I can just run it. Sometimes it gets annoying. Okay, it did start. Awesome. Let's see if this will run for me. Come on, friend. Oh, I was thinking about it. Did I close? Okay. I want to see what that output is. I have to run it from the command prompt to the terminal here. Sorry. I just got to see that output. Stamp. Catalina start. That should give me a bunch of things in here now, and not close when I'm done. Come on. So the Tomcat server is essentially doing all the things PHP does, but it does it for Java. So we can have Java servlets and Java server pages. That's what JSP is. I could not find. That's fine. That's fine. Oh, none of them ever go to run is why. That's why. We do that here? JDK run, maybe? Try putting it there. JDK run. Come on, Catalina. This is also part of the fun I have to redo because I totally blew away my XAMPP. No, didn't do it there. All right, let's also put it in the JRE run then. JRE home? Should be fine. JDK run. One more try. Yeah. Doing a bunch of things. Come on. Got my fingers crossed. It's not going for me here. I can change one more place. The other Catalina start here and edit. This one's a little smaller here. Let's see. Did it still fail? Okay, it still failed. So forget that. I'm going to set it here. So I'm actually going to take out this portion that looks for the reg key, and I'm just going to put my Java home in here. And I ought to do it for this one. And I'll try that one. So that's in the Tomcat directory, Catalina start. Oh goodness. Java home. 15? Oh, it's not 15. 16. Where did I get 15? Where did I get 15 from? That's crazy. Current directory. Let's take out a couple more things here. Cherry home. All right, one more then. Let's do JRE home. Let's try that. Oh my goodness. It still has 15 in there. All right, folks, I'm really confused where it's getting 15. No, I don't think I've got any environment variables. I shouldn't. don't think I do. Is that env JRE star or something? No, that's not right. Oh goodness. Environment variables. And nothing for JRE. I do have a Java home. How did I get a Java home variable? Forget you, Java home. Maybe that was screwing everything up. That's weird. I should not have had that. I'm feeling a little better now. Oh, that was not it. Oh, I gotta restart. Let me just see if it double clicks now. Maybe it'll just double click. Or maybe it'll start. Yeah, it looks for it, but I should just be able to override it. That's crazy. That's super weird. So Java home at 16. Let's try in here. Okay, it failed. Does this one work? Friends, not going well. Tomcat. And Lena starts. Oh, Java home is nothing. I said Java home, friends. Edit. Set Java home. This needs to be in double quotes. Maybe it needs to be double quotes. Batch files are obnoxious. Nope. This one in quotes. One of these ones ought to do it. My goodness. Give me 1 second. Sorry, folks. This worked last time so nice, so I'd have to reinstall XAMPP. That was a mistake. There we go. All right. Let's see. Come on, where is it here? Not there either. Lena starts. Java home. Okay, it's gone better. It's gone better. I don't want the home variable. Lena start that file. Yeah, we are. This one. Is it because I have spaces? Oh, and quotes? No quotes? I hate batch files, friends. I hate batch files. Try that. Nope. Spaces, of course, because batch files are the worst. Oh, goodness. All right. It's starting now. Hooray! Look at that. All right. Let me see if I can fix up that other one now then. So frustrating. I'm sorry, folks. Languages that need spaces are annoying. Yeah, it was the spaces. It was the spaces. Tried in this one and the quote. They didn't need quotes, and they wanted no spaces between the sets. Should be fine with that one. Let's try. But now XAMPP should see that it's running, and it should be able to stop it, I think. No, it doesn't stop. So Control-C will stop if you start it from here, but now let's see if the start will work. I'll cross my fingers that the start button will work now because I edited the right file. Okay, you're taking 8-week classes? Whew. 8-week classes are rough, my friend. Come on, Tomcat. Alright, my 15-minute estimate was wrong, but only because batch files are the worst. My apologies. Oh, it still didn't start. Okay. Nope, not the service. Catalina, start. All right, if it doesn't, that's okay. We've got the other start that'll work for it here. So again, I'll post that in the Discord, that little edit here. So if you edit your Catalina start file, let me post that here. Your Tomcat start. I need the whole path for that. Let's see. File. And then we added. All right, forget it. Forget it. It's fine. All right, so added that anywhere that you want to throw. Look at that. So if your Tomcat doesn't start, edit your XAMPP Tomcat. Oh, goodness. Missed a backslash. Catalina start file. Remove those couple lines that's looking for the reg key. And then we're going to add the set Java home or whatever that OpenJDK version is that you downloaded. Okay? That ought to get you running. Up and running. Oh, goodness. Go to the right monitor, please. No. Go to the correct monitor. There it goes. All right, awesome. Now that that's up and running, hooray, Catalina start, you can just double-click that. It'll go up and run, and then it should show that it's running here in a minute. Should be able to launch it here. It uses port 8080 by default. Yeah, you'll need to leave it open here if it didn't start from your XAMPP control panel. So it has to be up and running for it to work here. Sticks. Then we should get port 8080 in a second here. Where'd it go? And this is the Tomcat default page here. Woo! Tomcat does all sorts of really cool things. Got lots of stuff here. Right, so if we're here, we got Tomcat up and running. So this, again, this server is all Java-based. And we're going to do some really cool things with setting up our Manage Web Apps here. So in NetBeans, you go to File, New Project, and you tell it you want a Java web application. And it's going to go update the module here. You had an exam already, King? Oh man. In the second week of the course, that's rough. It's going to go activate Java Web and EE, the Enterprise Edition. Well, yeah, in an 8-week course, they're just going to smash everything together. Come on, NetBeans. There we go. So we're going to make a project here. We want 2454. This is Hello World Java. Sure. It says, okay, what web server do you have? So we have a Tomcat server. Java 6 is fine. We're going to send this to the Hello World Java path. We don't need any frameworks right now. We can finish. Okay, and we should get our new project here. This is our Hello World project. You see we've got web pages here. There's an index.jsp page. That's our default page here. That's what we got here. Let me close everything else but that. Close others. Okay, this is the main page here. We also have a source package. Nothing right now. Our libraries, the JDK, Apache Tomcat, our config files, context, manifest. There's all sorts of cool files in here. Context XML. So this is our main file. So we're going to run this in Apache. And we want to make sure we do it in Firefox because I hate the default browser. See if we give this a run. And it wants to log into the Tomcat manager. You just give it username test and test. Ought to work. Nope. Shoot, we didn't add it. So we got to go add it. So we need to go add the Tomcat users here in this config. We're going to go to config, Tomcat users. We can add test and test. I thought this one did it automatically. Hang on, let's see. We should be able to add that automatically. Why is it not doing it for us? That's all right. We'll go add it. We'll go add a user, test and test. We'll get the role Tomcat. Oh, it's commented out. That's why. So maybe we can get rid of all of them here. Run that one. And let's just restart Tomcat. I think the relaunch restart ought to do it. Test and test. Oh, come on. Of course, it's going to hate us. All right, are we not using the right server? .jdk. Oh, friends. Oh, this... I did all this before. Alright, me having to reinstall everything definitely made it upset with me. It should just run, and it's not. Tomcat. Where's Tomcat? Server port, yep. Tomcat. This is the server for it here. You know, let me remove it and re-add it here. Let's try that. Tomcat server. Server location. Go find CXAMP. Tomcat. Aha, test and test. There we go. So this will create the user. How is it going to run for us? Alright, friends, this is a stupid error. I've seen this one before. Don't know why it's not liking it. I think someone with my reinstall messed it up. So this is probably enough fun for now. I'll fix this, get it figured out, and we can have more fun with Tomcat next week. How's that sound to you folks? Just reload. Does not like my Tomcat server. Start up. Regular one. Okay. I don't think I'm missing anything. Alright, folks, we'll do that. Let's see if there's anyone else around on Twitch. We can go pester. We'll call this fun. Alright, and I'll post a final quiz for all the JSP stuff that we'll have. And is Boyd around? Let's see. Yeah, he is. Alright, we'll go take a look over there. Sounds fun.
I just like Discord.
Boyd's
trying to do better about
fab.
Discord whenever we're working on these
Alright, friends, we'll head over that way and see you around. If you got questions about the project, do let me know. I'm happy to help get you set up and running with whatever you need there. And we go from there. You folks take care. Keep in touch.